Welcome to First and Goal, where everything is made up and the points don't matter. Get ready for the latest and hottest topics in the SML. Let's get started. Here's your host, Mad Bomber.
Welcome to this week's episode of First and Goal. This week we've got Primetime 000, 17-time SML champ. Don't even remember the last time he won First and Goal. We've got Spooky straight out of Syria, 3:30 in the morning his time, but should be fun. We've got QP no longer dressed up. Halloween's over, and Finz, the fighting Canadian, possibly a co-host on a new upcoming show, but we'll see about that. All right, how's everybody doing tonight or this morning, Spooky?
Doing good.
Great.
Doing good. Ready to win this since I can't win a football game.
All right, then let's get started with topic one. Topic one. So we're almost done with this cycle, and all cycle we keep talking about. Noel's having a down season, and then it's another down season, another down season. Graham's is kind of off his game, and a couple other guys. Who's an SML member that you think is past his prime? It's no longer they're just having a down year; they're just done. Prime, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think we have to look at probably somebody from the OG pool, right? Somebody who's kind of dominated in the SML, and they've obviously taken a step back. Now, this is a guy I've kind of hit on quite a bit throughout the cycle, and I think his decline started towards the end of last cycle, and it's happened this cycle, and that's Grams. Grams is 55-50 this season, this cycle. He's 0-3 in the playoffs. So he hasn't won a playoff game yet this cycle. He hasn't won a playoff game in about 2 to 3 SML cycles. He said he's never gone below 500 in the SML before, but he's done it 3 times this cycle, about to be a 4th if he continues at this rate. And so you start looking, you're like, are the Cowboys a bad team? You look at their roster. No, they're a good team. They got the running back there. They got solid receivers. Is his division the toughest? QP's a great player. Everybody's got at least one good player in his division. Other than that, not really. So I think he's just declining. Last cycle he was slowing down, and now this cycle I think he's really, really kind of showing some decline.
All right, Spooky, what's your opinion from Trashcanistan?
Yeah, I would have to agree with Prime and say it's Gramazon's. Yeah, it's the first and only time you'll ever hear that. But yeah, I have to say it's Gramazon's because he's personally kept me out of the playoffs several times in the past. But just seeing him this year from the outside looking into the league, just losing game after game after game, the little shock chicken to the scoreboards that is always posting. Woods. So just like seeing him fall off and drop off the way that he has, I haven't seen him bounce back. I haven't seen any big wins. I haven't seen anything. So honestly, I'd probably mark him down as someone I'm not scared to play anymore.
All right. QP, what about you? First 2 guys have gone with a guy in your division. You going to triple down on that?
I'm not going to triple down on that. I've been in the greatest connected franchise mode for 5 seasons now going on, or this is the 5th season now. The past 4 seasons have been very consistent as far as who's good and who's not. So it's hard for me as a newer guy to kind of decipher who it is. I was hoping I got the first choice because, of course, we're all going to pick Noel if we had a chance. But seeing how we're not going with the obvious choice of Noel, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. And I have 2 other people. One of them is actually Field General. I think he has a Simbardi from what I know.
Yep.
In the past. And since I've joined, he has struggled a little bit. I know he has a really hard schedule, really busy life. And so he's kind of always foot in, foot out as far as the commitment for the gameplay, not as far as his commitment to the league. I'd go Field General as my first choice probably. And then the second one, I just went based off of the records that I've seen for the total wins. And I'm going to go Future, the Raiders. I've been hearing from when I joined, I heard his future back for the longest time. When I checked his win percentage, he has like a 66 win percentage, and I think he's top 6 for most wins all time in the SML. And since I've joined, he's been kind of second fiddle every single season in his own division. And in the AFC, he hasn't really been talked about at all. It's always Dan, Bomber, Prime, and then the 4th guy that ever gets mentioned, if it gets mentioned, is Paulie and Matt, never Future. So I would go with probably those 2 as my people past their prime.
Okay. Finz, how about you? You've played with specifically Graham's, for quite a while. So what do you think?
Yeah, Grams is a guy that I thought of as well. But I mean, he had a pretty good season last year. And then, I thought of Noel. I thought of Field as well. But I'll talk about Field later. I'm actually going to go with Lawyer. Lawyer, I mean, I beat Lawyer this year. So if I'm beating Lawyer with this team that I have, it's probably a rough go for you so far. I know he had a pretty good season last year too. I don't think he made the playoffs though. I think it was only Demies that made the playoffs out of that division last year, but he was in contention. But before that, he's been struggling as well. He would fit into that category that Prime was talking about, the OGs, I would think, right, Prime?
Yes,
he's been around for a while. So I'm going to go with Lawyer.
Okay. All right. So our next topic, and we'll start with QP here. But who made the best team selection this cycle?
Let me throw this hat so you could see it, Bomber. Give me a couple points really quick.
Oh, that's points.
So my first choice, it's going to be Matt Bomber, the Jaguars. It's my first choice. He picked him at the 28th spot.
Yep.
I don't know how they fell that far because they have so many good young pieces to work with. And since he's been one of the most dominant guys to play in the league. I picked the second choice as well, which is Faz, because he got the Vikings at 31. A lot of people don't really like the Vikings in the CFM, but Faz has kind of made them a sexy option to be. Everybody now sees how really, really good Dalvin Cook can be if you have glitchy thumbs. And then you have really young pieces like Jefferson, and obviously you can bring in some receivers from the draft. So I would say you two. I left Dan off because I know somebody else probably wants to go with Dan as the Broncos, because that's a really good team as well. So pick you two.
All right. Finz, how about you?
Goes back on.
I'm not going to cop out like QP. I think it's easy to pick. I think it's easy to pick teams that no one thinks are going to fall. You can't blame people. Like I was going to pick Dan, but I was like, well, it's not really his fault that the Broncos fell so far. So I kind of tackled it with like someone who picked early that it kind of worked out for him, and I went with Dump. That Niners team was pretty good from launch. They had a really good defense, and obviously Dump really knows how to kind of build teams. Like Edens is a monster, and he's got a lot of X factors in there. He just knows what he's doing with that. Plus, he wins a lot as well. So, and he's in a tough division. So to rack up those wins with those tough opponents and still be able to build your team that was already strong, I think was probably a really good pick by Dump. So I'm going to go with Dump.
Okay. And Prime, what do you think?
Yeah, I actually had two people. I had Dan right off the bat. He made the claims about he's going to join the AFC South no matter what. He's going to play Prime twice a year. No matter what team was there. It could have been any team. All three AFC South teams were still there, if I remember correctly, or at least two of the remaining teams could have been there. And he took Denver. He took one to the ego there because I let him hear it, but Broncos were a great pick. If he doesn't take Denver and he takes an AFC South team like the Titans or like the Texans, he probably doesn't have a Simbardi right now. So that was a good choice. Also, I put down QB stud. I know QB's not here, but he took a Chargers team. Really, it was like in the mid. I don't know how that team fell. For me, if I didn't take the Colts, it was either going to be the Chiefs or the Chargers for the first pick because I liked Herbert. They have a strong defense, and I think QB. He probably would have 2 or 3 Super Bowls right now with that Chargers team. That team is loaded. And Death Wish is a solid player, but that team with Death Wish, even Death Wish is a tough out with that defense. So yeah, I think anybody taking the Chargers in the teens is a great pick.
All right. And Spooky, you were here for the team draft. So what do you think? Any good picks?
Really wish I could have been in it picking 11th. Probably would have stole the Raiders from Future, and that would have been the good pick because I would have ran Dan. But I really got to go with Dan picking the Broncos because to be able to get that team and build it the way he has, looking at it now, especially with QB stud dropping out, that just made the pick even better because now he doesn't really have any competition. Played with Raider in the same division all last year. He's so up and down. People always talk about if he's back. But Dan, he took that team. He's built it right, and he's gotten a Super Bowl. And he's been competitive. So I haven't played him yet. I'm looking forward to playing him. But seeing everybody's selections and how it's played out for them, I gotta say Dan made the best selection up so far.
All right.
But
Hey,
we'll find out when I play him.
hey, Spooky, I thought you said you weren't going to agree with me anymore.
I was really hoping not to. Last time.
Okay.
All right. Well, then we'll start with you, Spooky, for topic number 3. And I don't know how much you've been able to catch of the season. I know you've been in chat pretty much daily. What are your top 5 worst moves of the cycle? Now we can talk gameplay, whether it's the fat finger run commit or Faz's Super Bowl collapse or even team building moves like the DK trade. Top 5 worst moves. Let's make some enemies.
First off, I gotta start off with the DK Metcalf trade because ever since I've joined, people always say don't trade Prime. And why on earth would Tiny trade one of the best wide receivers? He's everything I want. A tall, fast, good wide receiver that can go one-on-one. He played in the 2 seasons he played with Tiny. He had like 1,500 yards. 2 seasons with Prime, right after, had like 2,000 yards. So that right there is a number one big mistake. Next, Faz in the Super Bowl got absolutely blown out by RD. And it kind of makes me feel bad because I did have the Rams, so I want to take a little credit for that Super Bowl. I made the moves to help RD. But going off the other ones, the fat finger move, that was a bad choice. But besides that, being on the outside looking in, I haven't really seen too many other mistakes. But any trade with Prime, bad idea.
All right. And just to clarify, that was Dan that collapsed against RD in the Super Bowl.
Losing points, Spooky.
And we'll give you the trash canistan do-over on that. And if you were looking for another bad move, you could have pretty much said figs and then anything.
Yes.
And, you would have been correct. So QP, we'll go with you for your top 5 worst moves of the cycle so far.
All right. So number 1 is going to be Faz blowing his lead to Dan. If Faz doesn't blow his lead to Dan, he might very well be the greatest SML player right now that we're speaking of. He would be a 2-time champion. He would be no, he didn't go undefeated last year, but he'd be 15-1 last year. He's just been blowing everybody out kind of for a few seasons now. He's kind of found his groove. And if he would have had that first championship beating a guy that's so, highly respected like Dan, that would have probably put him as maybe one of the greatest to ever play in SML. So the number 2 would be Dan run commit because that established Dookie as the god in his mind, at least. And that obviously set Dan on a kind of a downward spiral since then. Since the run commit, he's either lost or hasn't made it back. So that'd be my number 2. Number 3 is definitely the DK trade because before the DK trade, I think Prime was kind of struggling, if I don't remember. When I first got in, not struggling, but his first few seasons when I was in here, he wasn't as dominant as he has been for the last few seasons. So I'd say the DK trade because that kind of put him over the top, and his offense since then has been rolling in his confidence, I'd say, probably as well. Number 4 is definitely going to be Colt and ZZ releasing those X Factors. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how we got away with it. I don't know how the Chiefs released Travis Kelce, then retired a few days after that. That was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. So I don't know. Those 2 trades, again, it went to Dan and then it went to Dookie. So the 2 guys that were kind of rich kept getting richer at that point in time. So I'd go with that as my number 4. And my number 5 is going to be directed right at Prime. That's bringing Dookie right into the league. You bring a guy like that into the league. The chat was just toxic. I used to not even want to poke my head in there. So I would say probably that as my number 5 with my consolation being my first PI win over Prime because that kind of put me right into the league. It was one of my first games and kind of put me on the map right away. So,
right, so putting Dookie on that list 5. Just got you 15 bonus points.
Well, I need a rebuttal. I need a rebuttal.
All right, we'll go to Prime first, then we'll finish this topic with Finz.
Let me just redirect that slam at the Primer admin team, specifically QB stud, because Mike said he doesn't want any part of that. So he blames QB. I guess you can move to Finz if you want, or I can give my list.
Yeah, we'll just go with you. You're already running your mouth.
I'm already worked up now. So number. So I want to say why the DK trade isn't even a top 5 bad move, because Tiny actually got some pieces back on defense, and it's so tough to win without having a strong defense. in this game. And DK hasn't developed. He hasn't. I mean, he's developed ratings wise, but his overall like his abilities are kind of trash. Like he has like the equivalent of jukebox maybe for a wide receiver, and the other one's like red zone threat. So he's not like some super mega star receiver, especially in a game where you have to run the ball more so than pass the ball. So I think if it was more of a passing type of game, I feel like it would definitely deserve a top 5 spot, but not really. Now for me, top 5, number 5 goes to Dan. I think that when he traded away his quarterback Leveray to Figs. And then now he's coming in the chat saying, "Oh well, I'm trying to keep up on star abilities on offense to keep up with Bomber and Prime." Well, you had a superstar quarterback, you traded him away. You can't complain now. You can't complain now. You have this mentality of winning without an elite quarterback. Now you do it, and you haven't been back in the Super Bowl since. So you kind of reap what you sow with that. Now, here's one pointed at our host, and I think he might agree. The Jaguars, when they traded for Josh Allen, giving him a big contract right away, I think if you could do that over and maybe either have a younger quarterback or do something different instead of giving Allen that big deal that kind of not cap strapped you, but locked you into him, I feel like you'd want to do that over again, and maybe you would have a Super Bowl appearance by now if you had a quarterback that didn't miss some of them key throws. Now, Faz, number 3, a lot of people are going to say Faz is Super Bowl collapse against Dan. I'm looking at it from his vacation stint where he didn't show up. He lost to Royce one year, then the year following, he just decides he's not even going to bring his PlayStation. He just decides that it doesn't matter enough to him. And that's where the narrative of Flaccid Faz came about, because he didn't even want to try to play in the playoffs. So that's kind of how that whole mess got started. He should have tried. He should have just tried to see what would have happened. Worst case, we would have autoed him. Number 2, I put down, this is a good one, Dookie poking the bear with Bomber, and not really just poking the bear, but he guaranteed a win on a podcast, came in and started pounding his chest. Then he lost, got his butt kicked, and then he said he didn't care. Like, this is all within a span of like 6 or 7 days. You can't do that. Like, you can't talk trash and then do that. If you're not talking trash, it's one thing. You kind of look petty, but you can't talk trash then say you don't care. It's just a bad look. You had the whole league on his butt, and then he stuck by what he said, which was really bad. And number 1, I've got the Dan fat finger in the Super Bowl. I forgot Dookie won a Super Bowl until this afternoon, and I was like, oh man, Dookie won a Super Bowl. I'm like, oh man, he won on Dan's like run commit because he's trying to make all these adjustments. Dan had a perfectly thrown fade route, and then Dookie won because Dan had one adjustment too many, and like QP said, has not been the same since.
Yep. All right, Vince.
Yeah, just don't ever listen to Prime on that. That DK trade is definitely one of the top 5 worst moves.
Why, Vince? Why?
Why? Because DK is a monster, and trading him to someone who is already really good for a late first round pick, and now he got some other pieces, but whatever, they haven't helped Tiny. So thanks, Tiny. The DK trade is definitely in the top 5. Number 4, I'm going to say that Dan trading the QB. Trading a young superstar QB is just never a good idea. Ryan pointed it out really well. He's never been able to get over that hump after moving him. Pardon me. For 3rd, I'm going to kind of poke fun of myself here and talk about pursuit angles. Any of you who've been watching my games know like I am very good at whiffing on tackles. Like, I'll be in perfect spot and then I'll just try to hit stick someone or dive. And so pursuit angles across the board. I know Dan brings him up, Fowler brings him up all the time, but if I can, and myself, I know I'm not alone in this, can learn how to tackle better, we'll be okay. I think the second one for me is Prime, you losing to Matt in the AFC Championship game. I think you give Matt a lot of crap for his gameplay, and him beating you in the AFC Championship game, I think, is a stain on your legacy this cycle. And then
AFC divisional.
Oh, it's divisional? I thought it was championship. My bad. And then I'm gonna have it's the Kelsey and Michael Thomas getting cut. Those 2 moves are insane. I don't know how you just cut those guys outright without trying to get something for them. So yeah, that's my top 5.
All right. So next we will start with you, Finz, for topic 4. And topic 4 is going to be with the cycle, winding down, and we're going to be switching over to PS5 and the whole new cycle for Madden 22. How many guys do you think will lose between cycles? And who? Who's out of here, Finz?
I have two. I have two leaving. KJ's been banging that retirement drum since I've been here. I don't know how much of a talker he is or whatever with that stuff. I don't know if he sticks to his word. So I threw him in there just because that's been kind of one of the prevailing topics since I've been here. And my other one is Field. I don't think Field's having a lot of fun right now. Every time I watch his games, he just looks like he's getting just really frustrated with the gameplay. And when that kind of happens multiple weeks in a row, you really start to just hate it. It becomes a chore to play. And I know when I've been in the past, that feeling that way in the past, and I've just decided to walk away at some point and just because you need to recharge. I know he's left before and come back. I know his work schedule is really bad too, so it makes it even more difficult to play. So yeah, I have KJ in Field.
All right, so you got two with being KJ and Field. All right. QP, what do you think?
I think it's going to be probably somebody that's like an OG of the league or somebody that's been around for a while. One of the main ones, probably because we got to discover eventually. I think Latin has to be buried in his basement by now. The game that he's still alive the joke is over. I would say him because, again, I don't think he's around anymore. And then number two would probably be Terrible Two Step, somebody like that. Not to say just him directly, but somebody that's been around for a while, kind of the bottom of the barrel when it comes to wins and losses, and they played a long time. They kind of fizzled out, and they don't want to be a part of the CFM anymore. Not to say it's going to be TTS, just saying it's going to be somebody like that. Possibly KJ as well, because he's been banging that retirement drum also, like Finn said.
So you going with two as well then?
I'm going with three.
Three. Okay. So two for Finz, three for QP. Spooky, what do you think? Who's out?
So this is where I make my comeback. But KJ, I think KJ's sadly going to drop off between him and me messaging, trying to get the PS5 and everything. He's been telling me a couple of things, don't want to drop anything. But I think KJ is going to leave. Will it be forever? I hope not, because I love KJ. But KJ did, if he said anything, he said, I'm taking somebody with me, and that's going to be Latin, because I'm pretty, like QP said, he might be gone. He might be dead in his basement. But KJ and QP, you were right, Latin. So KJ, Latin. Yeah, I'm not saying you're leaving.
Okay.
Nah, it's late. I'm having a brain fart. But Latin and KJ, I can see them leaving. Field, I hope Field doesn't leave because I like Field a lot. He's the better brother. But at the end of the day, probably KJ. Most definitely.
All right, Prime. How many do you think, and who's it going to be?
Yeah, that's a loaded question for me. Well, I think we have to be realistic, and it was always a pet peeve of mine when you go on Twitter, and I'm not sure how many of you guys look at other leagues and see what they're doing, but part of my job is to scope out the competition, and they would always say 60 days without a move, or in the middle of August to let's say October or something. We haven't had to turnover in 3 months. Well, just like when you're hiring for a business, I feel like in CFM you should have turnover. You should have guys at the bottom that are either replaced or leave, because if you're not, then I feel like you're just getting complacent. And typically we take a review in the last season or two of each cycle, and we're maybe a little more aggressive to make a move. I probably won't name any names, but probably two guys, and it'll be somebody who maybe isn't that active in chat, social media, or isn't really that hungry to play their games. And anytime you have a league like the Primer, where you have a lot of guys who are hungry and who are proving themselves, it makes that decision a lot more easier. It's like constructing an NFL roster. Who are the best guys possibly that you can put in that lineup, and they're just going to give their all to the league. And if we lose that mindset, then the league will die.
All right. So that's going to do it for this week's show. If you think you might be one of those two guys Prime's talking about, maybe kick it up a notch. But that's going to do it for this week's show. And the winner this week, with a score of 92 points, beating Prime by 1 point, is Spooky.
Oh, shoot. We actually did this?
Yep. So Spooky,
dang.
these 30 seconds are all yours.
Let me just guss you up real fast and just say, Prime, I know I said I would never agree with you ever again. And that right there is full. I am never agreeing with you ever again. I thank you for letting me back in this league. Hopefully this right here doesn't make you find me a replacement and make me one of those two guys. Love everyone. Raider, reevaluate your team building skills. ZZ, you too. But I'm happy to be back. Love all of y'all. Hopefully I get to see the new people. Don't pay attention to the screen. But yeah, thank you everybody. Happy to be back, and hopefully I can kick off Madden 22 and actually show y'all that I'm decent in my own mind.
All right, well, that's been it for this week's episode of First and Goal. Appreciate you guys being on, especially Spooky staying up till now it should be 4 in the morning over there. So definitely hurry back so we can get you on a normal schedule and have you on here more often. But thanks for being on, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to First and Goal. Be sure to check out Mad Bomber TV on Twitch and YouTube for the latest from the SML. And we'll see you next time on First and Goal.